We've lived with slavery and segregation 345 years. We waited a long time for freedom.
Dr. King did not give up. He did not give up. We can't stop now. We have to continue to do the work in the community.
It's just too depressing to think that things aren't going to change. You have to be optimistic to do this kind of work. I sure hope we can get there.
He has left a legacy for us, but just to hear his voice and him say to us, you know what, you're going to get there. You just have to keep pressing forward.
It's not a question just of Dr. King's dream. He would be the first to say that it didn't originate with me, but don't let it end with me.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
It's a great day for Virginia.
Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
No justice! No peace!
Martin Luther King Jr. got to this point for me just so I can speak.
I truly believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that all people are created equal, and that we all have work to do to create a more perfect union. I believe that with everything inside of me.
Welcome to the 43rd Annual Martin Luther King Jr. Community Leaders Awards celebration, sponsored by Virginia Union University and Dominion Energy.
Welcome to the Community Leaders Celebration to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Virginia Union University has hosted this event for 43 years along with Living the Dream Incorporated. This year's commemoration is in partnership with the United Negro College Fund, WTVR-TV, and WTKR-TV. And a special thanks to our sponsoring partner, Dominion Energy.
For the first time, this event will be televised in Richmond and Hampton Roads and live streamed over social media. Over the next hour, we'll honor the legacy and work of Dr. King by recognizing 6 community leaders and organizations who worked tirelessly to realize Dr. King's dream of racial, social, and economic equality.
We honor their individual and collective sacrifice and salute their vision, tenacity, and commitment to Dr. King's beloved community.
Good morning to the Commonwealth of Virginia, to all of its residents, and all of those who are watching worldwide. We welcome you to Virginia Union University's 43rd Annual Martin Luther King Jr. Community Leaders Celebration. We're excited today, Monday, January 18th of 2021, to celebrate the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. This legacy, important now more than ever, to celebrate the equality necessary in what we believe is still a matter of dream and work, the beloved community. As we continue to work, we thank you for joining Virginia Union University as we symbolically represent what it means to stand for and work in equality as a higher education institution. We need you, your family, your friends to join with us in extending the bonds of love for all humanity in shaping, forming, supporting, and fighting for a beloved community. Thank you for watching, thank you for joining, and thank you all who have made this day possible.
On behalf of the trustees of Virginia Union and myself, I want to welcome all of you. Martin Luther King is a symbol of what it is that Virginia Union seeks to produce. We seek to produce leaders. We seek to produce people who have conscience and moral integrity. In 1960, our students marched at Tallhammers as those who engaged us and engaged our university in the dialogue, the discourse, and the protest that took place in the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King is iconic to Virginia Union. He represents our faith, he represents our moral consciousness, he represents integrity, he represents our focus on the quality of education. And so today, we celebrate Martin Luther King because Martin Luther King is who Virginia Union is, a healer, a voice for justice, and a compassionate friend and healer for the nation. God bless you, and thank you for joining us today.
Our first honoree receives the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Beloved Community Award in Faith and Education.
Dr. Gould Champ and her congregation, Faith Community Baptist Church, have worked tirelessly with Richmond communities Fairfield, Whitcomb, and Creighton Courts, as well as the greater East End area. Now, when COVID-19 physically shut the school doors down, the church realized they had to come up with a way to keep the students connected with the classroom. Well, through Dr. Gould Champ's leadership, the church was able to open their doors and start a program called Stay Connected, Stay on Point. And they were able to help students with technology and academic support.
I chose the MLK quote where he talks about faith is taking the first step without seeing this whole staircase, because I think that that is the essence of what faith is. That is the essence of how I've lived my life. This church would never have been founded if we had been looking to see the whole staircase. None of the things that we do here would we be doing if we were looking to see the whole staircase. Faith Community Baptist Church is a staple in this area because we were founded to serve this area in particular, and especially all of the surrounding courts around us. Dr. Martin Luther King's vision is one that I've embraced since childhood and learned it in the Black Church, of which I've been a member since I was baptized at age 7, so about 67 years. But one of the things about King's message is that he helped us to understand that our mission as believers was never to be inside of a building. It was always to be about the enhancement of people and building lives and building a community. And so even as God gave the vision for this church, Faith Community Baptist Church, it was with the empower. Part of our vision statement says that we're here for the empowerment of people, not just spiritually, but economically, educationally, and socially.
Of this 6, right? And we're gonna add 3 more.
And so when we heard that they would not be able to go in person, we already knew it was going to be a problem, that our children were already at risk and they were going to get further behind. And so we were driven to, we can't just allow that to happen without putting out some kind of effort to help and assist in any way that we can. And that's when the vision was given to me for Stay Connected, Stay on Point, to keep them connected to other children as well as to help them stay on point educationally. I think Dr. King, if he were to be here during the times in which we live, he would be greatly disappointed, greatly heartbroken. But I know that he would be speaking words of hope and helping us to see that hope always trumps chaos and all the other kinds of hopeless situations, those things that appear to be hopeless. And I know that he would be leading the charge in helping the church, especially the African American church, to know that our place is out front. Our place is not silence. Our place is not to just look and observe, but our place is to determine how are we going to be a part of the solution to what's going on.
He stayed on campus that Friday night. The next day, he had to go to Byrd Airport to catch his flight back to Montgomery. And I was asked to drive him, to motor him from the campus to Byrd Airport. He knew that violence couldn't win. So he said, unnecessary suffering is redemptive. And he got people to believe that. And people went away doing that. That made a difference. And everybody has seen, and we celebrate him, we celebrate what he was about, because he really made a difference. He shook the status quo. And so many other things sprung off from it. In politics, in government, in education, and it's still, Black Lives Matter is a part of it, it's part of it. So the things that are taking place now that we are just seeing have their roots in what he did many, many years ago.
The COVID-19 pandemic hit us all in unexpected ways. This unprecedented time calls for unprecedented advocacy.
Since 1978, the Virginia Poverty Law Center has worked tirelessly to break down the systemic barriers that keep low-income Virginians in the cycle of poverty.
We are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Because there is that push all the time of people saying, well, you achieved this, that's enough, you know. And I think that's why Martin Luther King Jr. said that, is that people were saying to him, well, you need to stop. And he's saying, no, that's not enough. When you have to keep on moving on, there's a lot more to be done. And there always will be, unfortunately. Well, you know, a lot of people forget that when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, he was in Memphis. I think it was April of 1968. And the reason he was there was he was supporting the sanitation workers who were on strike.
It is a crime for people to live in this rich nation and receive starvation wages.
He had really shifted a lot to the kinds of issues that we work on, which is workers' rights, economic issues. So that's I think the parallels that the civil rights issues and the voting rights and all that issue unfortunately still exist today. What people don't understand is just a huge psychological barrier. There are so many people in Virginia that cannot pay their rent because they lost their job. And I mean, this just wears on you. Every day, all you can think about is the fact that you have unstable housing, and you just don't know whether you're going to be whether you're going to be thrown out, and it's really difficult. Last year, when we passed what's called the Fairness in Lending Act, I did work on that for 20 years. And knowing that we worked in coalition with a whole lot of people, so it was obvious that we had achieved a lot, and we estimated that we're saving people as much as $100 million a year in these excessive fees. And I talked to lots and lots of these people who get these loans over the phone. So that's when you can get some success like that. Or the other thing, that one of the biggest successes we ever had in our office was getting Medicaid expansion. You know, when the Obamacare was passed, the states had to pass Medicaid expansion, or a lot of people would not come under the Medicaid umbrella and have health care. And it took us about 5 years, again in coalition with a lot of groups, but we got it passed, and now I think the numbers are 500,000 people have health care that they would not have had if that had not passed. So you certainly take pride in victories like that. And as John Lewis always used to say, you know, it gets very discouraging sometimes, and sometimes you think to yourself, there's been no progress, but there has been a lot of progress. But that doesn't mean you quit. There's a lot more progress that needs to be made.
As a black preacher, a black pastor here in Richmond City, I'm excited to know that Dr. King calls good trouble. Dr. King is the reason why the convention that I am a part of was started. The Progressive National Baptist Convention, which is a social justice, it's a justice convention for Baptist pastors, Baptist churches, and I'm a part of that. And I've been there my whole life, and it's taught me to fight for what is right. And also it gave me a chance to understand that the gospel is real and the gospel is full of justice. So I'm thankful for the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Thank you to our sponsors for their support of this special Martin Luther King Community Leaders Awards presentation.
Dr. King once said, one of life's most persistent and urgent questions is, what are you doing to help others? Our honoree for the Beloved Community Award for Health Equity represents that ideology and goes to the Sisters Network, Central Virginia.
Founded in 2007, the Sisters Network Central Virginia is a breast cancer survivorship organization dedicated to spreading awareness about the devastating impact of breast cancer in the African American community, where women are 42% more likely to die of the disease. The Sisters Network provides fiscal, medical, and emotional support. They're best known for their annual Gift for Life Walk Block Health Fair, where they canvass underserved communities and hand out breast cancer information.
Dr. King's quote, life's most persistent question is, what are you doing for others? It doesn't always have to be monumental. This is what we do as an organization. We want to help others through the journey that we've been through and help them to be inspired to know that they can overcome breast cancer and there's life after breast cancer. What I always remember about Dr. King is just seeing him on the forefront. Seeing him on the forefront, locked arm in arm, and these are pictures that I have when I was even much younger, up until when, when Dr. King passed. But just that he was just such a monumental leader, and that he put others before himself. And he just always was on the forefront, no matter what the risks were, guiding and leading and directing the community. And like I said, I think when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, once I, got through my treatment, the first thing I did say to myself and my coworker, what can we do? What can we do? And that's when we started Googling, looking for an African American support group, survivorship group. I felt as though God was really using me as a vessel. I really did, and I still feel that way, and that's why I do what I do. I think for me, the biggest impact was when we did receive a call from Every Woman's Life, which is a state-funded program here in the state of Virginia. And, they can't reveal any information as far as the individual or their diagnosis, but they said to us, you all were in a neighborhood not too long ago, and you left a bag on a door, and the young lady had been trying to get a mammogram for some time, and her insurance did not cover mammograms, and she could not afford a mammogram. And she took out your resource list, and she called us. And so we reached out to her, and we set her up for a mammogram. And that young lady was diagnosed with breast cancer. But the good news is it was caught early. And for me, that just let me know that what we're doing in the community is working, because I look at that as the possibility that we saved a life.
Now we are in a new phase, and that is a phase where we are seeking genuine equality, where we are dealing with hard economic and social issues.
I think Dr. King would be hurt over the fact that we're still talking about this all these years, but I think he would be proud of the people that are standing up for justice and standing up against health disparities. We are all one people, and we need to recognize that and love each other like Dr. King loved everyone, and be leaders in the community.
We followed the pattern of the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. of non-violence, but we wanted to demonstrate, to show our resistance to the status quo. We were not comfortable, and we did not believe that we deserved what was the status quo. And so that's why we were there, and we followed that pattern during the protest, because there were those of us who had coffee spilt on us, some were spat on, and just all kinds of insults hurled at us. When we left this campus, we left here with the idea that we were not going to do anything violent, and that we were going to take whatever was hurled at us, and we did that. We were successful.
Thank you to the sponsors of the Martin Luther King Community Leaders Awards.
Helping every child who needs it is the solemn pledge of the second honoree for our beloved Community Award for Health Equity. It's presented to the Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters in Hampton Roads. The CHKD system opened its doors in 1961 to provide needed pediatric services that no one else in the region offers. The health system offers many important clinical services to the community for free or at reduced rates. Often touted as more than a hospital, it engages in a variety of community outreach initiatives to support the development of healthy and happy families.
We are proud to have the CHKD Child Advocacy Center as our backbone organization. They truly provide the leadership and guidance to our trauma-informed community network. Myself and 4 other persons of color, TICN leaders, joined together after the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. And we came together around a conversation of what discrimination truly looks like and how we know that racism truly is a public health crisis.
As an African-American female, our culture tends to shy away from healing, shy away from the mental health dynamic, counseling, therapy, and so it's important for someone who was African-American to be able to say it's important to heal, it's important to have therapy, it's important to express our thoughts, not to just keep it to ourselves. And it gives future generations the ability to understand that it's okay to not be okay.
In 2022, Children's Hospital will open the doors to a multi-million-dollar facility to provide both inpatient and outpatient care for children with a wide range of mental health conditions.
During that time, I was chosen to go represent SNCC at a meeting with John Lewis when he organized a meeting there. And there I met Martin Luther King there, and I heard the music "We Shall Overcome" for the first time at that church. And so I was privy to all that wonderful thing that was happening then. I realized that this was a great person that had done a lot of good things. In the March on Washington, which I had to go because of what I'd done in the past. I went there by myself and was there when he gave the speech, "I Have a Dream." And I appreciate him more now because of all he tried to do. He just didn't stay in his lane as a Baptist preacher. He spoke about politics, Vietnam War, and all those things that they didn't want him to speak about, that he was ready to talk about injustice, wherever it was.
How I got over. See my soul look back and I wonder how I made it over. Yeah. Whoa, how I made it over. Whoa, it got rough sometime, but I made it over. Whoa, you see my soul look back and I wonder how I got over. Whoa, just as soon as I can see Jesus, the man that died for me, the man who bled and suffered, you know he died out on Calvary. I want to say hallelujah. Trouble's over. You see my soul look back and I wonder how I got over. Hallelujah.
Amid COVID-19 and social unrest, this year has been one of remarkable progress for issues advocated by our honoree for the Beloved Community Award for Policy and Social Unrest. It is presented to Delegate Dolores McQuinn. Delegate McQuinn is a staunch advocate for racial and social justice and has served in the Virginia General Assembly since 2009. During the 2020 Virginia legislative session, she introduced and championed the passage of House Bill 1537. It overturned a decades-old state law that protects Confederate monuments and gives local governments the freedom to make decisions about them.
There are many quotes that Dr. King had, but this one that seemed to be so profound for me, he said, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by law. And I think that that has motivated me in so many ways. And it's a message for all of us. I would believe the biggest impact that he has had on my life is certainly public service. I started probably when I was around 11 years old. My church and the pastor was very engaged in the civil rights movement. He attended Virginia Union. And so at that time, they were very, very much involved. And so I was asked at that time to come into the city and actually support a candidate that was running for city council. That candidate happened to have been who we know as Senator Henry Marsh at the time. But over the years, many things have changed since my childhood that has been good for just humankind, period. And I can see where generations, if we can get it right, they would applaud us in terms of our efforts to make sure that we are bringing people together, that there's a bonding going on, that people are beginning to not just tolerate one another, but accept one another as a human being. I have been so impressed this year by the images and the pictures and, of people finally walking together and not getting weary in it, the process. I have had the opportunity to spend significant time with some of the protesters and to hear, these very young intellectual beings feeling and being just determined in their efforts. And I often tell young people and others, I said, just find your corner of the world. You don't have to take the whole world and serve the entire world. Find a small corner and begin to affect change in that corner, whatever you desire or however you desire to get it done. And then if you want to expand on that, do it. But there is no limitation. There are no limited, opportunities for us to give back. And I think in many ways that's what Dr. King would say, and greatness is about serve. And those are words too, biblical words, that greatness come from how you're going to give back and sacrifice some of your own time, your talents, and even treasures for that matter.
Dr. Martin Luther King, he looks over us. Because every night that we walk the city of Richmond, every night as we're voicing our, not even opinions, our freedom of speech, because that's what we have. We have the right to speak out loud, to say what we demand. We're demanding respect. We're not asking for it. We're demanding respect as much as you demand respect. I look at Black Lives Matter in Richmond and the story of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the fact that he never settled for less makes me know that what I'm doing is right. And if it seems wrong to other people, it's because you're on the wrong side of justice.
Black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
After Dr. King announced that he had a dream, a local group has been working to live that dream for more than 4 decades. Here is Reverend Dr. Ricardo Brown.
I'm honored to be here as we celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Living the Dream was started 43 years ago on this very campus by a group of strong and concerned men and women of the clergy and Virginia Union University staff, including Reverend T.C. Milner, who were committed to tackling the continued social injustice experienced by minority communities here in Virginia. We continue to stand on the shoulders of great people like Dr. King, Reverend Milner, and the late Reverend Willie Woodson, who served as Executive Director of Living the Dream for nearly a decade. Reverend Woodson expanded the work of Living the Dream through several community partnerships. Like King, he was committed to our beloved community.
We have a special recognition for an honoree who changed the political landscape of our country.
2020 was a milestone year for our Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Award recipient. To introduce the honoree and present the award, Diane Leopold, Vice President and COO at Dominion Energy.
Thank you. The MLK Legacy Award this year goes to the Honorable L. Douglas Wilder. For most of us, this remarkable man hardly needs an introduction. He has been a towering presence in Virginia and its capital city, Richmond, for most of his life. He was born right here in Richmond, a grandson of slaves who was named after abolitionist Frederick Douglass. He attended segregated schools and then Virginia Union University, graduating with a degree in chemistry. He earned a Bronze Star for heroism in the Korean War, earned a law degree from Howard University, and then became the first African-American state senator in Virginia since Reconstruction. In 1985, he was elected the first African-American lieutenant governor in Virginia, and in 1990, he became the first African-American to be elected governor of any U.S. state. Later, he became the first directly elected mayor of Richmond in 6 decades. Governor Wilder embodies both Dr. King's hopes and his ideals, and he richly deserves recognition for his life of service and accomplishment.
My favorite Dr. King quote, I paraphrase it by saying, when a thing is right, the time is always right. I think he said, the time is always right to do what is right. But it means the same thing to me, and I've tried to practice that throughout my life. Well, we were nearly the same age. I think he was a couple of years older. Our birthdays are pretty much separated by a couple of days. What he believed in impacted me more than his life, because he didn't exist before I did. We were contemporaries. I learned a lot from what he was doing and found it inspiring to what I was trying to do myself. I never wanted to go into politics. I never wanted to go into smiling and grinning and asking for votes and begging for money. And yet, I came to recognize that unless things changed, my life would not change. The lives of others would not change. And people like King and his predecessor, Vernon Johns, who had that church, who was a Virginian, brilliant man, from Virginia Union as well. They believed in demanding what was right and criticizing what was wrong. And I found that I did a lot of that. And when I came back to Richmond to practice law, I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like what I saw from every angle. I didn't like what was taking place with the political groups. They were not demanding, I thought, what was right. They were supporting. Oh, they were lending their votes. But I found we were getting little in return. And so I said, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to try to do this. And so that's why I said I lost my mind, because it's demanding. If you're going to do what's right for the people, you have to give your time, you have to give your effort. And that means that you sacrifice other things. You sacrifice the things that you would want to do for yourself, for your family. And I did that. Some of them being threatened in school when I opposed the state song, Carry Me Back to Old Virginia. My kids would come back and they were in Mary Munford School or some other school of elementary level. And they were ostracized. People would be upset with them, with their white students. Why? Daddy did something wrong. He did something bad. What did he do? Cross burned in front of my house. And the kinds of things that would go about when people saying, oh, you did that, you'll never be elected to anything else. Why, you said, get rid of that song, carry me back to old Virginia. The lamentation of a slave saying that he wanted to come back and be reunited with old Massa.
That's where the old darkey's heart and long to go. There's where I labored so hard for old Massa.
That song was the state song of Virginia, but it didn't become the state song until 1944, which means this was not back in the Civil War days. This was Virginia's commitment to racism.
In old Virginia, the state where I was born,
Right after the war, the World War, that they said was fought to free all of the people of the world. And so with those kinds of things going on still in my mind, as I got into the state senate, I said, look, I'm going to stay here for a while, but I'm going to move up and out. When I said I was going to run for lieutenant governor, they said they knew I was crazy. Not here in Virginia. And people say, well, we can maybe fix it so you can be the state party chairman. I said, oh, yeah, you can do that for the next guy, but I'm going to run. And as a result of it, I traveled to every city and every county in Virginia. I took 60 days and said, I'm not going to stop until I go to every one of them. I was campaigning in a place in Southwest Virginia, and I was, obviously this was a time when everybody was speaking about abortion and whether it might be a throwback to it. And I had been advised by a friend of mine who was in the Senate from there, a white fellow, a good friend of mine, and he said, Doug, when you go into these places, you got to go into every shop, because if you go in to stop at a barber shop and don't go into the next one, somebody's going to know about it. If you hit one store and you don't go to the one up the road, the bread man's going to go up and tell them, Wilder's down at that store. These people were expecting you to come there. So I did, went into everyone. He said, when you go there, you have to shake everybody's hand. So I did. And in one store, I was coming out, and it shook everybody's hand, and so somebody said, you didn't shake that man's hand over there. And I said, well, you're right. And I went over, and this guy was sitting on top of this barrel, and he had on bib overalls, the tobacco stains creasing, coming through his mouth, straw hat, red bandana around his neck. I said, hello, sir, I'm Doug Wilder, I'm running for governor. He said, I have something I want to ask you. I said, well, that's why I'm here. He said, I want to talk to you about this abortion. I said, oh my goodness, I could have gotten out of here without talking to this man. And he said, before I could give him, so I was prepared to give him my Jeffersonian response. Government has no right to interfere in the most personal or personal relationships with a woman. And I said, oh, he said, ain't no man's business nowhere, is it? I said, wow, you're right. It convinced me that you couldn't judge people by how they look, how they talk, where they live. And I said, at this late stage in my life, for me to have to be reconnected with recognizing that was a reawakening experience for me.
I, Lawrence Douglas Wilder,
do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
Today I get letters from people from all over the country. They are inspired by knowing that I had little to start with. They feel that I have accomplished. But what it means to me is that they see that a state that did not permit people to go to school could produce the first black governor in the United States.
We still have the attitude of love.
The step is a question of America recognizing what its history is and making certain that we allocate our resources to doing that. And it's not by steps as such, it's by actions. And so it's one thing to have a holiday for Dr. King once a day, once a year. The question is, when are we going to get to the point of recognizing that we are always going to be different in terms of race, we're always going to be different in terms of gender, but we don't have to be different with the way government affects the differences in terms of allocations of money, for schools, for education, for health, for housing, for jobs, for employment, for the judiciary. Those things need to be ended tomorrow, if not today. Do it when? Now. What is the problem that we got to wait for? Do it now.
As long as has been an MLK, the reverberation and the fallout, the good and the positive results are coming from now and on and on and on and on. As long as there are people living and find out about what Martin Luther King has done, that's going to influence them. And there'll be other movements in other places at other times, but it will come back to that base. Martin Luther King, the dreamer cometh, go ye out to meet him. And he's going to be there for us.
Congratulations to each of the honorees today.
We encourage you to remember and reflect on the work and legacy of Dr. King as we all work together to further his dream of a beloved community.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, oh, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching to the freedom land. Ain't gonna let segregation turn me around, oh, turn me around. Ain't gonna let segregation turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching to the freedom land. Ain't gonna let race hatred turn me around, oh, turn me around. Ain't gonna let race hatred turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking. Ain't gonna let Mississippi, turn me around. Ain't gonna let Mississippi. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching till the freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me, nobody. Ain't gonna let nobody. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, freedom land.
Thank you for watching the 43rd Annual Martin Luther King Jr. Community Leaders Award Celebration, sponsored by Virginia Union University and Dominion Energy.